Today is August 12th edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were Central Illinois agriculture source, and in the Midwest alongside in Central Illinois agriculture, we're glad you're here on Back Roads of Illinois. I am glad to join with you guys on a Monday. This time is for serious business for your agricultural news, EPA. It's investigating for cook oil for China. Ag bankers see the economy is falling apart without the Farm Bill. Illinois State Fair is kicking off in Springfield. The EPA is investigating for cook oil from China on jet fuel for major airlines in the United States. We've been having some sugar cane ethanol export from Brazil for last weeks ago, but the EPA took a look for SAF or GREET model from this administration. Ag bankers see the farm economy is falling apart without the Farm Bill for this year. Ag bankers are concerned about the economy and the stock market for last Monday in New York. The Illinois State Fair is kicking off in Springfield. The fair is showing their livestock and their projects at the State Fair for this year in Springfield. The State Fair will be running August 6th, Thursday, August 16th in Springfield. You can visit the State Fair for right now. We were talking about the commodities markets and the World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate Report with Clayton Pope from Clayton Pope Commodities in Champaign. Stay tuned on Back Roads of Illinois. Today, we were joining with Clayton Pope in Champaign, Illinois for Clayton Pope Commodities. Welcome to the show. How are you, Clayton?
Thank you, Cesar. I'm just fine after a pretty crazy day in the markets today. It's good to have it closed and take a breather.
Let's start with our conversation about the World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate report on today from the Department of Agricultural.
Okay. The biggest changes today were the corn acreage and yield numbers, as well as the soybean acreage and yield numbers. The yield numbers for both came out higher than expected, higher than the published average trade guesses, I should say. However, I do think that the general industry expectations were higher than what the average than the published expectation numbers. In other words, I don't think those yield numbers were that much of a shock to anybody. But the interesting thing today was the acreage numbers. They dropped corn planted acres by 700,000, not too far off of expectations, just because of the extremely wet spring we had. But the shocker was that they raised soybean planted acres by 1 million acres, and that really shocked a lot of people. And that plus the increase in the soybean yield sent soybeans reeling for quite a while.
What is the number from today's report?
What were the numbers? Well, the yield number for corn came out at 183.1. The July number was 181 even, so we're up to a new record by far. That's quite a big leap for one report. Soybeans came in at 53.2, and that's compared to 52 even in the July report, so that's a jump of 1.2, also a record for the soybean yield.
Can you tell our listeners about trend line yield?
Well, there are always different approaches to how you would actually compute what the trend line is in terms of how long an average you want to use, what kind of slope you want to use to, should you use, like, for example, a 5-year slope of those average yields? Would you be a relatively short-term look at it, or should you use more like a 20-year look at it and to try to extrapolate what the trend line yield should be? There's a lot of arguments back and forth. What is the best methodology to use? I don't claim to know exactly what the USDA is, but I know that some of the private outfits that we subscribe to or other ones that we read about have an issue with it. They don't think that the USDA's definition of trend line is necessarily to be taken as gospel. The important takeaway is that there are numerous ways to define trend line, but for all practical purposes, the way the USDA defines it is all that matters because that's what everybody bases their calculations on going forward. Because nobody knows how those are actually applied to come up with some final number. So um, I enjoy watching each one, and I guess the potential's there for surprise. But I think the only thing that really matters is what they come out with on Friday afternoon, and then see how the trade reacts Sunday night.
What are you looking for with the yield in Illinois?
Oh boy. Well, the corn yield, I mean, let's see what that came out to. It's pretty amazing. Let's see here. I think didn't I read it was 222, I think, on this report. Let me find out. Yeah. No, Illinois was 225. I mean, we all know it's a stellar Illinois crop. I don't. I guess I'd be surprised to see that come down much. It could probably inch up a little bit more here if the August fill turns out positively. And so far, it looks like it will. I mean, this cool weather is just perfect. We're still getting, periodic rain. So my guess is it'll continue to grow a little bit, 225, 227, something like that. It's hard to imagine it growing a whole lot, though. As far as soybeans go, that probably has more variation possibilities ahead of it. But I mean, it's a phenomenal record. Came out at 66 today for the whole state of Illinois. That's compared to the national number, like I said earlier, is 53.2, but 66, that's the highest number in the country. Iowa was 61. And there again, I mean, this August weather is unfolding pretty darn perfectly so far for Illinois. I mean, you could argue the northwestern states might be looking at some stress, but Illinois certainly is not. So here again, if I had to bet, I'd say Illinois will still grow a little bit higher than 66.
Where people can find you.
Well, you could look us up on our website. It's www.claytonpopecommodities.com, or you're more than welcome to just call me. My phone number is 217-351-7711. We're based in Champaign, Illinois. We've got 5 branch offices, or 6 offices across the country.
Do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I guess I don't want to end on too much of a negative note, but when I look at what these funds and what the trade has done to this wheat market, that it is, relatively speaking, bullish fundamentals compared to the soybean market. I'm afraid the soybean market could still have some downside exposure to go here. So my advice would be to look at some options strategies to maybe protect the downside even at these prices.
Thanks, Clayton.
Thank you, Cesar. I enjoyed it. Take care.
This is Clayton Pope from Clayton Pope Commodities on Back Roads of Illinois.
below 100 bushels in some of these counties. So it's interesting in the fact that, it's not 250, but 190 is still not a terrible number for when it's all said and done. From there, then as we swing around McLean County, just south of McLean on 51, that particular area of McLean has never been as strong as I always felt it should be, but it must be something about the soil conditions and things like that. Maybe there's a little sand in that general area that I'm looking at. We came up with a 202 bushel, excuse me, I'm sorry, 187, actually the lowest yield we had of the thing. And then we swung into DeWitt, which has been a real strong one in the yields at that point. This year, actually, it wasn't as strong, primarily, I think, because it was an area that was wet. And if you remember, we had a very strong plantings on corn and beans in April, and then we had a two week, maybe 17, 18 days, didn't turn a wheel in central Illinois. And I think that area did not get planted. And it has been an area that has had ponding and things of that in the past. We did not, by the way, see any significant losses of ponds in the fields, corn or soybeans, either one. So that's an interesting, that came in at 200, excuse me, 202 from there. And so that's a little disappointing. But every time we switch these things around, sometimes we have, as we just mentioned, Grundy's strong. Woodford sometimes has been strong in the past. And then DeWitt, right now, this year, Woodford's the strongest one. But probably the most interesting factor was as we came out of DeWitt and came up that Illinois 54 highway, which really kind of parallels the IC Railroad that goes from Chicago to New Orleans. And so you go diagonally up through these counties, and southeast McLean turned out to have a good one for them. It's not the highest they ever had, but 209 bushels was very good there. But really, Ford and Iroquois, which have tended to have some really tough crops at times in that part of the state of Illinois, really hit the rains and got the corn in a timely basis. In most cases, we did have to make an adjustment on our last particular stop. But even then, these two counties, in our records at least, came out with the highest yields we've had during the whole tours since 2016. Ford had 222 and Iroquois had 238. Those are very strong average yields.
How about the beans yields?
Well, yes, as I mentioned, we don't really do a detailed look at it. We do end up making some judgments about the beans by trying to see where we are on potting. We mentioned some of the crops got planted in Illinois in April, and some of them didn't. And the beans, particularly in some cases, interestingly enough, when you're driving down the road in the state of Illinois and looking at soybeans, you see the most amazing looking crop, in my opinion. It's always clean. It's really hard to judge how tall it is, things of that nature, and that you sure can't see if it's been lots of pods or not along the way. But I'd have to say that about half the crops had a decent potting situation of these 8 or 9 stops, and we didn't always have a soybean crop field close to where we are beans at, and that. But so I don't have as many stops on my totals here. But overall, the potential's there. The key question becomes is August weather. My judgment is that I think the USDA is going to come up with a 63 bushel Illinois yield, which is the second highest that they've issued in August at this point, because of what I see out there and the potential. That is what I want to also say is that's what it looks like, potential. And we've also seen the situation where early bean yield or corn yield has went backwards as it went through the season. It doesn't all.
This is your commodity markets update on back roads of Illinois. Corn futures finished in down 8 to 7 cents. Soybean futures finished in down 3 to 5 cents. Wheat futures finished in down 8 to 10 cents. Cattle futures finished in down 3 to 6 cents. Feeder cattle finished in down 4 to 5 cents. Lean hogs finished in down 8 to 7 cents. Crude oil finished in up 3 to 6 cents per barrel. Dow Jones finished in up 7 points. Thanks to Clayton Pope from Pope Commodities and Audio by Jerry Gidel. We're running out of time on our show, but you can listen it on whenever get your podcast. This been Back Roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. Have a good day.